Earlier today, we mentioned the fact that we were going to get started with our Ram Runner project, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to Bruno, because I understand that when we say Ram Runner, there might be a few of you out there who don't know what we're talking about.
Now, what the project starts with, this is a 2009 Dodge 1500 truck, a stock truck. There we are turning into, well, basically a vehicle that's able to go out and be a pre-runner for desert races. And what we mean by that is, you know, before you put on the Baja 1000 or you're a team, you put out a vehicle that's capable of going over the trails and marking it for you. So let's say you've got big holes here, or you've got to slow down and make this bank turn. You need to have something that's capable of going over the course, and that's what we're doing with this truck. So it's capable of doing that. But to make it to that level, it's a rather ambitious project. This one here takes a lot of time, there's a lot of effort, a lot of man hours to make this thing fully capable.
We always joke around that if you're one of the individuals that sits back and goes, man, I'm not sure if I want to change my own oil or not, listen, this is a project that you would want to avoid. Now, you can put this kit on yourself like we're doing, or you can order it from Mopar and get it done at the dealership. So either way you want to go is fine. We thought it would be cool to do the project ourselves and get in here and do some of the work. Now, like you said, there's been a lot of work done. So it all started right up here underneath this wheel well with a little bit of cutting.
Yep, what all started here with, this is our stock shock tower. We had to cut it out of the way because we need to get a lot of travel out of this new suspension part of this whole kit. Now, this will have a capability of 14 inches of travel up front, which is going to make this thing more than capable. But to do so, there's a lot of fabricating that has to go into all this. You give us a little template here, we'll set it into place, and this is where everything's going to be based off of this template.
You know what's nice about that? We can lay the template in there, we make all the circles right there so we know where to make the plug welds, and everything is good. It almost looks like the little dude's happy. Look at him, he's so excited about what's going on with this truck.
Now, before you break out the plasma cutter and start cutting out that old shock tower, you want to go ahead and shield behind with these steel plates. The whole idea is the plasma cutter works fast and can remove just about anything in its path, so with the steel plates behind it shielding, we won't cut brake lines or melt wiring and destroy things we don't want destroyed. The shield's there with the steel plates. We'll make sure that we just cut out the areas we intend to.
This new front suspension is very strong, and it's built specifically to take a lot of punishment on the front. So think about it, if you've got two shock towers like this, and you come crashing down on the ground and you don't have enough support, those things can buckle in. Well, you've got this shock tower brace that goes right across from the top here, it's bolted in, it goes up through the engine compartment and over to the other side, and it hooks into the top of the other tower. So it's all tied together. You want to tie that all together, get it all in place before you weld it all in, make sure everything is aligned. Now you're ready to take a lot of punishment up there in the front.
Now, before you weld in this shock tower, you want to go ahead and use this alignment hole right here to set everything in place. It's got the hole cut out in the new piece as well as the factory one, so this way you can use it as something as an alignment point, tack weld everything in place. Once you get it all tack welded, then you go ahead and do your final welds. One of the components to this Dodge Ram Runner kit is the ability to widen the front stance of the truck, and the way we're going to do that is by using the sleeve that came with the kit. So what you do is you'll actually go ahead and cut the axles in half on both sides. Now, this sleeve is going to give you an extension of 2 inches on either side, which is 4 inches overall. So once you butt the shafts back into the sleeve, you weld it all into place, and this way you've got that 2-inch extension on either side.
All right, you lift that arm up for me, dude?
Yeah.
All right, we'll slide this on, and then we can start kind of putting this together a little bit and kind of seeing where we're going to end up, right? So next up, let's go ahead and get that lower arm. Yep. All right.
Now, this is what I call a shock, man. This is a serious piece right here.
Yeah. It's nice looking too. All right, let's go.
A little heavy, I ain't gonna kid you.
I'll take your word for it. All right, so what we're gonna do now is just basically let all this hang out for a little while. That way, when we drop the truck down, we can compress the spring on the jack. That's gonna make life a lot easier. We're not gonna try to fight that with ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
we're not gonna be able to fight that spring, that's for sure.
No, so in the meantime, we can roll up to the front and take a look at that big new bumper we've got. Look at that. This is a little foreshadowing of how the front end of this truck is going to look. That's going to be nice.
That's really cool.
Now, up to this point on this Mopar Ram Runner kit, we've been working on the front suspension primarily. So we're taking a little break from that and coming up here and taking a look at this bumper. That thing is big, man. It's ornamental and useful. So, but it did take some doing to get to this point to get it ready for installation.
Well, one of the things we had to do was go ahead and remove these front mounting brackets right here for this bumper. Now, this was a little bit more cumbersome than normal installation would be because the backstory in this truck was the guy actually did an endo in the sand and bent up the front bumper and bent up these mounts. They were so bent up that you couldn't cut them clean off and get a nice square end. So what we did is we took the plasma and cut out that front flange like this, and then went with the Sawzall and straightened everything out behind it and cleaned it all up. This way we're gonna have a nice, flat, level, straight surface to work with the new bumper.
But you know what? That's the story a lot of times around here. I mean, things are often more difficult than they should be, but that's fine. You know, so these brackets came in for the bumper, and those will mount right over there. There's a little bump right there on the frame rail. So we kind of center the hole in the bracket over that, and we can clamp these down and see where we got to drill our holes. What we'll do is we'll take a measurement from the back side of the bracket to the corner here and make sure that's the same on each side. That way we know it's nice and level.
Got one side about ready and the other side is just about there as well. Now what we had to do was drill out a couple of holes. This side of the frame here we drilled out to the size of the bolt. Now on the other side though, we opened up the hole a little bit bigger. So you can see right here this bushing will slide in from that side. The reason why is you want this bushing in place so when you tighten down this bumper, you don't collapse the frame itself. By opening up the hole to this size, you can actually slide it through, tack weld it in place, and that bushing will be fixed. It won't move around on you. It'll make life a lot easier because you're not juggling the bushing with the bolt and the nut and the bumper and the mounting bracket. The one less thing you got to juggle when you're holding this big bumper makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, because that could be a lot going on. Now, another thing the kit comes with is a couple of these shims, and these are nice too because they'll actually mount right here if you need them. You got a handful of them in the kit, so if we have a little excess room, that will fill that space. So we don't know if we'll need to use any of these or a couple of them until we put that bumper into place. So time will tell.
All right, let's get this thing up in place. Side.
Looking good. Just about right. Okay, well that gets it into place.
So the bumper's set in place. What we can do is the last piece of our puzzle is that shift it off to one side to figure out how much gap we've got between our frame rails here and the mounting points of this bumper. And that will fill in on either side. We'll split the difference with these shims. Once the shims are in place, man, we are done. We can tighten down this front bumper assembly.
That does look a lot more aggressive in the front.
Yeah, I like it, man. It's a good look.
Now, another thing we talked about changing the look-wise of this particular application was these new fenders that are going on in the front right here. And it all started with this, and we did this a little bit earlier. Those of you that have worked with fiberglass bodies or fiberglass body parts before, you know how easy it is, and you know how they always go on perfectly the first time, right? Well, that might be a bit of a stretch. I think we were up to 8 or 9 times putting it on and taking it off, putting it on and taking it off. Now, you kind of hang it into place first and see how everything's looking, right? Now, you're gonna have a little piece here or there that's a little bit extra. So what you do is you go ahead and mark that, and you take it in, you pull this off, and you grind that part off with the grinder. No problem. Once you get it to the point where it fits good, now you've got to put the holes in it so you can mount it into place. Well, the holes up on the bottom side, right around here, they're pretty easy because you can get behind here and see right where the holes need to be. So you got a couple of them up here in the front and a couple of them down there in the bottom. Those are the easy ones. Where it gets a little bit tricky are the holes right up here underneath the hood because the holes are underneath where the fiberglass is and you can't see through it. So how do you know where to put the holes? Well, here's a good little trick. So you take a piece of tape and you run it right down the side of this like we did. Pull the fiberglass piece off again. Now you know where your holes are at and you can mark that right on your tape. Simply put this back up, make your line, make a little X, you know right where the holes are at, and you can button them in there and it's nice and easy. It's a little bit tedious, but if you take your time and make your measurements and do it right, this baby, just like this one, is gonna fit like a glove.
So here's the deal. Our upgrade to our Mopar Ram Runner suspension kit in the back, a whole lot easier than the stuff we had to do up front. What it comes down to is basically upgrading the spring and shock to a brand new set we've got right here, and Matt calls these as rated as awesome. It's the Fox Racing Bypass 3-inch shock, and this thing is going to allow us to do a whole lot more than the stock settings ever would. What happens though is when you come to doing upgrades, whether it's a race vehicle or an off-road vehicle, you find fusible or weak links. Well, one of the weak links when you're talking about utilizing a spring and shock combo like this is the mounting bracket. It's great for factory settings, but when you're going off-road, you need something a lot better, a lot beefier. And that's where this comes into play. Now, this is all part of the kit as well. So we cut the old one out of the way, put the new one in place, and if you look at it, quite simply, it's bigger, badder, better. It's going to allow us to keep the shock and spring in place and allow us to go down the road and have a lot of fun. You like this bad boy?
I do like that a lot. Actually, it looks great. It's going to be another nice addition to this Ram Runner project, there's no doubt. But you know what? I'm looking around. The fact that I can see you tells me something is missing back here.
You know, I hadn't noticed anything.
That would be the bed. You know, here's the cool thing about this Ram Runner thing. We got the bed sides that are going on as well. And again, that was something else that was a lot easier back here than it was up front. So that's pretty cool. Welcome to TruckU. Now, the last time we saw this truck, we were just getting started with our Ram Runner package. And at that time, we were really concentrating on the looks and the suspension. Well, we got the suspension all dialed in. That's ready to go. We came up here and we put these fiberglass fenders on the front. Those look great. We got the bumper all taken care of up here in the front. Now today, you know, we still have a little bit more to do with all that, but now we want to shift the focus more to the performance, which I know that's going to make you-know-who really happy.
Yeah, we've got that whole Baja look, and it's going to perform like it in terms of suspension, but now we got to give it some power. So what we're going to do is add a new Supercharger kit. We're going to put some performance headers on this thing as well as a transmission. So we've got an entire performance package that'll let this thing perform like the real deal.
Now, it all starts with this Vortex Supercharger that we got from Rip Superchargers. We've worked with these guys in the past, and we love what these little things do to the vehicles. It's a lot of fun. So we got a couple things out of the way, got the mounting bracket ready, and this is ready to start cramming some more air into that engine.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen a centrifugal supercharger before, from first glance you might think, well, it looks like a turbocharger to me, and it does up front because you've got that compressor housing. The difference is when you look at the back side of it, well, it's driven off of a crank. So you've got a pulley here, and the belt will tie it to the crank, so when you hit the throttle, it spins up this compressor wheel, and that's how you're forcing air into that engine. And this little baby right here is going to give us 425 rear wheel horsepower as well as 450 pounds of torque.
Nice. Well, let's get that mounted and get the other stuff going, dude.
Cool.
This particular supercharger is good for all of the 4th generation 5.7 Ram Hemis, and we're talking about 2009 to 2011, 15, and 2500. Now, it would be nice if it was as simple as just cramming more air into the engine, but the whole supercharging as a process is a tad more complicated than that. You have to compensate for all that additional airflow, and we do that with new injectors. Now, those came with the kit, and we've already installed those, so that's going to add more fuel to the mix. So more air, more fuel equals more horsepower, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
Yeah, like Matt said, you know, there's more to it than just forcing air into the engine. What I'm doing right now is installing the heat exchanger. What you've got is basically you've got some hot air being forced into the engine right now without a way of cooling it down, because as this air is compressed, it creates heat. So what the guys at Rip Chargers have done is taken things to the whole different level.
Yeah.
In most street-driven applications, what you'll see in terms of an intercooler is an air-to-air intercooler, which essentially looks like a radiator. You've got one inlet and one out, and what you've got is ambient air blowing across the fins to try and cool down that charge. Well, at Rip Superchargers, they take it to a whole new level with a liquid-to-air intercooler. Now, this is something you'll see like in a lot of racing applications, and what you're doing essentially is taking that same radiator, or a core is what they call it, which is inside here, and you're soaking it with coolant. So you tap into the cooling system of the engine, pump it across those fins, and you can really cool down the charge. So you've got the hot air coming in, the coolant cooling down that air, and you're getting a nice cool charge going into the engine.
And that goes back to what we always talk about. The cooler the air is, the more dense it is, and that results in more horsepower. And that's exactly the name of the game today.
To give you guys an extreme example in the drag racing world, take an engine that's turbocharged or supercharged, and at, let's say, 45 pounds of boost without an intercooler, you can see as much as 400 degrees of air inlet temperature. So with a properly matched intercooler on that same application, you can drop down the temperature to 100 degrees. All right, this will work right here. Cool.
This system is designed to run at 7 pounds of boost. Now, right here on the inlet tube is where this blow-off or this bypass valve is going to mount. Now, think about it. You're driving down the road, you're making all your boost, right? And it's all charged up in this tube, and it's cramming down into the engine. But you get off the throttle now. Basically, what you're doing when you get off the throttle is shutting the door right there. That boost and that pressurized air has no place to go, and if it doesn't blow off, so to speak, it's going to go back into the supercharger, and that could damage the whole thing internally. So you got to have a blow-off valve like this for that excess pressure to get relieved.
Yeah, once we get this charge tube in place, there's one last order of business with our supercharger kit, and that is to put on the filter right here to protect the compressor wheel. Now, this is what you get normally with the kit, but the thing is it's not going to work with our setup because we've got, well, our Ram Runner front suspension on, and you can see the mount right here kind of gets up in the way and you can't make the bend to get in there. But the guys from Rip Superchargers, man, they got us covered because they told us about it ahead of time. They sent us some new bends, so what we can do is do a little fabrication work. We can get that filter on and all will be good, man. Our supercharger system will be all done.
Yeah, we'll get all this piping taken care of. We'll go to break, and when we come back, we can get up underneath this thing. Some extra power at this truck, we need the driveline parts to hold up, so we need to upgrade the transmission, and that's what we're doing with this 545 RFE transmission that we got from ATS Diesel Performance. Now, these guys are known in the industry as having strong transmissions that are going to hold up. They do it for a lot of diesel applications, and they make them for these Ram trucks as well. But one little bonus thing, a little fun if you will, was right here. This bracket that had to come out so that you could change the transmission. Now, this goes all up in there, and it acts as an engine mount, a differential mount, and it ties into the transmission right here. It anchors right there. So all that's got to come out of the way. The differential had to come out before we could do the transmission work. That was wonderful.
Yeah, this whole project is a bit involved, but you know what? I think the payoff will be well worth it. Now,
Absolutely.
When you're putting more power in a vehicle, you got to make sure you can get the power to the ground. And thanks to ATS Diesel, we're now capable of putting 600 horsepower to the ground, as well as 600 foot-pounds of torque. Now, the way you're doing that is you've got to get a package where the torque converter matches up with the transmission. If not, you know, it's going to be inefficient. They won't work together. You know, first of all, the torque converter itself, if you look at it, it's got a billet front cover on it, which means it's going to be a lot more structurally sound and have the ability to handle a lot more of a load. Now, when you talk about the inner workings and the upgrades inside the automatic transmission, it can be a bit cumbersome to explain. Even the most die-hard transmission guy won't quite get it. You know, there's a lot going on in terms of reworking of the circuitry of the hydraulic fluids inside of it. You know, they've changed the rates at which the clutches apply and release, as well as giving you much bigger surface area, much larger surface area on all the clutches, so it allows you to get more clamp load. What that clamp load means is you can apply the power, it's going to stick and transfer to the wheels. A lot of stuff going on inside this transmission, allowing us to utilize all that new power.
I like it when you dumb it down. I appreciate that.
Just a little bit.
It helps me out a little bit. Now, the biggest enemy of transmissions and the biggest cause of transmission failure is heat. And that's where this bigger, deeper pan comes in that we also got from ATS Diesel Performance. This will hold more fluid. That way it's slopping around in there and everything's staying nice and cool. It's got the fins on the bottom, so the air's running along that, keeping it a little bit cooler.
Very cool.
It's a nice bundle. In keeping with the performance upgrades on this particular vehicle, the next step is these American Racing headers. These are going to be nice, man. You take a look at this. All right, here's the stock header, so think about it. As everything's happening, the exhaust is coming out of here. Well, right as soon as it comes out, it's getting crammed in there with the rest of it, right? It's not traveling very far. As this comes out, it could create back pressure in one of the other holes. It's not going to happen in these American Racing headers because, look, the exhaust comes out. It's got to travel clear down this tube, the better part of 2 feet probably, before it all gets collected right there and shoots out the back. It's all about letting this baby breathe.
These guys know what they're doing. You know, they do custom headers for the big three, for Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, for their production race vehicles, the Copo Camaro, the Drag Pack Challenger, and the Cobra Jet Mustang. So they know what they're doing, man. And you know, Matt's talking about decreasing back pressure and getting better flow. Well, they even take that to a new level because if you look inside the collector here, there's a scavenger spike which helps keep those gases separate all the way out. So you're not getting the cylinders mixed up and you're keeping the pressure flow in the right direction. Now they've got O2 sensors in place here for us so you can keep it compliant, man. Now it's just a matter of bolting this stuff in place. So we've got our American Racing headers bolted up to the cylinder heads and we're finishing off our exhaust system here. We ran into a little bit of a fork in the road, so to speak, because we need to go ahead and cross over that bottom of the transmission pan. Well, with that aftermarket pan we had on from ATS Diesel, it gave us a lot more capacity, but gave us a clearance issue. So in this instance, I opted for performance and we put back on the stock pan.
Imagine that, you opted for performance, you know? You know, that's going to happen anytime you're adding multiple aftermarket and upgraded parts. You're going to have to make decisions like that periodically, so that's fine. I think what we want to keep in mind is the fact that this is the most popular kit from American Racing headers, but what they are not is a one-size-fits-all operation. So if you want to cram a lot more power into this thing and really get ridiculous with it, they can accommodate. We can go with bigger primaries up to 1 7/8 inches. You can run a 4-inch all the way out the back. I mean, you can go crazy with it, throw as much power as you want to, and they're going to handle it efficiently. And if you're doing something wild and custom, call the guys up and they'll make something happen for you.
Now, this system itself was built to optimize low to mid-range torque, and now the Y pipe here is a critical component in that. Now, you got to be careful because some guys will want to go with true duals out the back, and you know, if you go overkill, you go too big of a tube, you lose that low-end torque. That's something that we don't want to happen with this setup right here. We're going to finish bolting this thing up and take a break. We come back, more of this Ram Runner project, and this thing is really coming together.
All right.
Coming in hot.
Hey, man, whoa, jeez, kid, you just threw a battery in.
You like that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, though. Look at that.
Normally, I don't get the opportunity to chuck car batteries at Matt, but this is no ordinary battery. It's from Lithionics. It is a lithium 12-volt battery, man. What's great about it is it packs a lot of wow up in that standard Group 34 size.
Now, you talk about the big difference in weight. Like this one I just pulled out, probably weighs 100 pounds, easily.
Yeah, I'm going to say more like 40, but Matt tends to exaggerate a little bit. But there's a significant difference between the two. You know, this one here, you're looking at 11 pounds. This is 10 pounds, and it's a lot more powerful than what you'd find in your normal lead-acid battery.
It's also got almost twice the life expectancy because this is good for up to 10 years, where a normal car battery between 4 and 6. So you get a lot more life out of it, and there's some cool options as well. You know, this has got what they call a never die feature. So let's say you pull into the place, Bruno's going shopping at the mall, and he leaves his lights on again, right? What happens is the battery will discharge 90% of it, and then it shuts itself off and leaves 10%. So when he gets back in and discovers that, he's like, oh no, what am I going to do? It doesn't matter, because all you got to do is turn the battery back on, either with the button that's on it or the optional remote. You still got 10% left in that thing, and it's going to start right back up, and you can get back to the house. Very nice.
Another cool security feature is when you've got that remote is you can actually turn the battery off when Matt goes in to buy himself, you know, some new CDs or whatever it might be. You can actually hit the button, shut the battery off, and it's a good security system, because if someone wants to steal the vehicle, they'd have to bring a new battery to do so. That's a pretty cool feature.
Lithionics performance battery, baby. You can do this with a battery.
Hey,
come on.
You know what? And they're made here in the USA, and you know what? They're green too, because there's no lead, no acid, so these are a pretty cool option.
Nice. Now, Bruno, okay, look, big front bumper. What could be better than one 10-watt light bar from Laser Star?
I'm thinking like 10.
Whoa, hey, okay, baby steps.
Too much?
How about 2?
All right, 2's good.
Because this is going to be plenty bright. Look at this, dude.
Yeah, these things put out a lot of light. These are the 10-watt light bars from Laser Star, and they've got the latest generation of Cree LEDs, which mean they're going to have the lowest amperage draw and the highest output in terms of lumens, man. So this will really brighten up the night sky, especially when we're doing stuff like we're doing pre-run air, going out on trails or courses, because let's face it, when we're taking this thing, there isn't going to be any street lights.
That trail is going to be lit up like you at the Christmas party, man. Let me tell you. This is cool because these have race-proven durability, and they're also protected from dust. They've got an IP68 rating, so it's protected from dust and water ingress, and they're submersible up to 9 feet. So if you accidentally dump this whole truck in a ditch or a lake or something like that, at least you don't have to worry about the lights.
If we're 9 feet under, we got a lot more we need to worry about than the lights.
Extraction, for one.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. Now we have to make a couple mounting tabs, put the top bar in, but it's pretty much done except for the wiring. All this is a quick push-in connector on one side, the other side we run positive and negative, and we are ready to rock. Then we can go to the back.
That's right. Bedsides, right?
Coming up, man. It never ends.
No, it doesn't. That's going to be bright, dude.
So to finish up our Mopar Ram Runner body kit, what we're doing is we're taking off this outer steel shell and replacing with a fiberglass one. Now, not only are we going to get a big weight savings dropping the steel and putting on some fiberglass, but we're going to get some clearance issues as well, because the new body sides are going to have a little bit of a bow to them, and it's going to allow for us to get more travel. The way they're sitting right now, if you were to actually utilize the full travel of the suspension, the wheel and tire would bottom out up in the wheel well. This way they'll clear, and we can use all that travel.
Now, some of you guys might remember when we did the front and we put those fiberglass fenders on the front. It was a little bit tedious and a little bit tricky. You had to be really careful when you did it. Fortunately, it's a little bit easier back here as far as the work level goes, but it's just as tedious because you got a lot of little things you've got to do.
Well, when you talk about tedious, you're talking about 100 or so spot welds on either side that you've got to cut off before you can get this outer shell off. And the way to do it is to get your spot weld cutter. So we're literally going to go to every single spot weld all the way along the body here and drill out the weld, and this way we can pop that outer shell off. I think that's the last one.
Up underneath the wheel well here, we just need to pry this out a little bit, and there's a little strip of glue going all the way around. So we just have to pry it up and pop that glue, and then once this is out, the rest should come off pretty easy. Let me get this out. I think there's still some glue in there.
There we go. Nice.
There we go. Look at that. Hang that back on.
Something like that, man.
Yeah. Wait.
That's going to look really cool. Now,
Yeah.
not only is this going to give us the aesthetics we're looking for, but the functionality as well. The only thing we have left to do is trim out the inside of this fender well, and we'll get all that clearance. But, man, this thing is really going to look nice.
Yep. Not bad. Not bad.
Hey, welcome back. We have got a ton of work done to this Dodge truck, man. We have overhauled it both inside and out, and underneath the hood, we've got a ton of performance upgrades. Now, we've got that Supercharger kit inside. We've also got those new headers. Now, we're going to dial it all in, though, with this Diablo Sport tuner. We're going to make sure that we get the right tune and the right cal for not only that Supercharger, but make sure those headers are matched to it. Once we get the engine all dialed in, we're going to turn to the ATS Diesel's Copilot. That's going to allow us to, on the fly, match up our transmission to that engine. So we get the power going to the flywheel, going through the trans, into the rear and front wheels, man. This thing's going to be awesome.
Big news. The guy at the motocross track just called me. He said, bring it over as is. Let's get out of here, dude. Yeah, don't worry about that. Come on.
Details? No?
Nothing.
I'm with you.
Here we are at the Dade City Motocross track, and they have given us the right layout to simulate some obstacles from the desert. So this is going to be the perfect place to do our shakedown run for the Ram Runner project. Now, Ram Runner recommends running a tire between 33 to 35, so we upgraded to these Wild Peak ATs from Falk, and they'll give us plenty of room in the wheel wells. That way, when we land, they'll tuck in there nicely and not bottom out on the bottom.
Now that RIP Supercharger we put on is making a ton of power, and thanks to the guys from ATS Diesel, man, they've got that transmission working well, so the power is getting to the wheels. Now, another cool thing about that Copilot we got from ATS Diesel is the fact that it can work not only on this truck, but it can work on any truck's transmission. You want to get more longevity or better shifting, man, it'll work on any vehicle.